Gen Z is doing something no generation has ever done before. They are more financially aware than their parents ever were at their age. They watch finance content. They track their spending in apps. They talk about money openly online. And yet, nearly half of Gen Z is still living paycheck to paycheck, and 1 in 5 believe they will never be able to retire. So what's going on? It's not that Gen Z doesn't care about money. It's that some of the habits that feel responsible, that feel smart, that feel like self-care, are quietly working against them. Today, we're breaking down 15 of the most common Gen Z money habits and exposing which ones are secretly sabotaging your bank account. This is part 1. Let's get into it. Habit number 1. Soft saving. If you haven't heard the term, soft saving is the philosophy of saving at a relaxed pace so you can still enjoy your life today, instead of grinding and sacrificing everything for a retirement that might be decades away. On paper, this sounds healthy. It's a reaction to burnout culture, and it's a fair response to an economy where the traditional path, buy a house, retire at 65, feels increasingly out of reach. Soft saving isn't inherently bad. The problem is what it quietly becomes for a lot of people. An excuse, a permission slip to stop saving altogether and just call it balance. Roughly 80% of Gen Z isn't currently saving anything for retirement. Some of that comes down to not knowing how to start, but some of it is soft saving in disguise, telling yourself you're being intentional about spending today, when really you just haven't built any system for tomorrow. The habit itself isn't the trap. Using it as an excuse to skip saving entirely is. Habit number 2, and this one is everywhere on your For You page. The little treat. A daily coffee. A trending collectible toy. A weekend dessert. On its own, one little treat is nothing. The danger is in the frequency. More than half of Gen Z says they buy themselves a small treat at least once a week. Some studies put it as high as 92% doing it regularly. And here's the number that actually matters. For the majority of people who do this weekly, it tips over into real overspending. This is what financial experts call a slippery slope. And it makes sense why. A $5 coffee doesn't feel like a financial decision. It feels like self-care. But self-care that happens 5 times a week, every week, for a year, is not $5. It's over $1,000 in coffee alone, before you add in every other little treat stacked on top of it. The habit isn't the enemy. Treating yourself is fine. The problem is that little purchases were never designed to be tracked, so they never get budgeted, and they quietly become one of the biggest line items in your entire spending. Habit number 3. Buy now, pay later. Gen Z now uses BNPL more than they use credit cards. And it's easy to see the appeal. No interest if you pay on time, and it feels less like debt than swiping a credit card. Here's the backfire. Because BNPL doesn't report to credit bureaus the same way credit cards do, and because it's split across dozens of different apps and retailers, it's incredibly easy to lose track of how many pay-in for plans you're actually juggling at once. One purchase feels small. 5 overlapping BNPL plans across different apps, all pulling from the same checking account in the same week, is not small. It's a stack of obligations you can't see in one place. Unlike a credit card statement, there's no single dashboard showing you the truth of what you owe. That invisibility is exactly what makes it dangerous. It doesn't feel like debt until it behaves exactly like debt. Habit number 4, and this one is growing fast. Turning to AI for financial guidance instead of a real person or a real plan. There's nothing wrong with using AI to understand a concept or get a second opinion. The backfire happens when AI becomes the entire strategy. When someone takes a general answer, generated from generic patterns, and treats it as personalized financial advice for their exact situation. AI doesn't know your debt-to-income ratio, your state tax situation, or your actual risk tolerance unless you spell out everything perfectly, And even then, it's not a fiduciary. It has no obligation to act in your best interest, because it's not actually giving advice. It's predicting text. Used as a starting point, it's a genuinely useful tool. Used as a replacement for actually understanding your own money, it's a habit that quietly outsources the one skill that would have protected you long-term: financial literacy. Habit number 5. Getting your entire financial education from TikTok and YouTube influencers instead of the boring fundamentals. This one is nuanced because, obviously, you're watching a finance channel right now. The issue isn't that financial content online is bad. It's that Gen Z grew up with more free information available than any generation in history, and more of it looks credible than actually is. A confident delivery and a good thumbnail doesn't mean the advice is accurate or that it applies to your situation. The habit that backfires is treating every viral money tip as universal truth instead of cross-checking it. The specific hot stock tip, the guaranteed side hustle, the aggressive investment strategy that worked for one creator's very specific circumstances. None of that is automatically right for you. The fix isn't to stop watching finance content. It's to treat it the way you treat any single source. Verify it, understand the reasoning behind it, and don't act on a 30-second video alone. Habit number 6. Chasing dupes and resale finds. Buying secondhand and buying dupes instead of name brand items is, generally, a smart move. It's one of the few Gen Z habits that's actually praised by financial experts. The backfire is subtle. When finding a deal becomes its own hobby, scrolling resale apps for the thrill of the hunt, buying something purely because it was cheap or rare, not because you needed it, turns a smart habit into a disguised form of impulse spending. You didn't overspend on the retail version. You just overspent on the discount version instead. Habit number 7. Putting travel above everything else, including retirement, emergency savings, even debt payoff. Because so many Gen Zers feel pessimistic about ever affording a house or a traditional retirement, many have quietly reordered their priorities. Save for the trip first, worry about the emergency fund later. The backfire is obvious, but easy to ignore in the moment. An unexpected expense with zero cushion turns into high-interest debt, which erases years of progress a single trip's worth of savings could never make up for. And habit number 8. To close out part 1, loud budgeting, publicly telling friends you're not spending right now, without ever building an actual budget behind it. Saying no to plans out loud is a great social tool, but it's not a financial plan. Loud budgeting works as a boundary. It only works as a money strategy if there's real math behind it. That's 8 down. And the next 7 are where this gets even more interesting, including the habit that's quietly costing Gen Z more than any other single spending category. Part 2, right after this. No recap, no reintro. Picking up exactly where we left off. 7 habits down. These next 7 include the single most expensive habit on this entire list, and the one almost nobody realizes is a money habit at all. Let's keep going. Habit number 9. Ordering food delivery as a default, not an occasional treat. Across every generation, eating out is the single most common wasteful spending habit in America. But Gen Z leads every other age group, specifically in delivery app orders. The highest concentration of any generation ordering meals through apps instead of picking up the phone or walking in. Here's why that number matters more than dining out in general. Delivery doesn't just cost you the markup on the food itself. It stacks a delivery fee, a service fee, and a tip on top of a menu that's often already priced higher than in-store. A quick tab of takeout doesn't feel like a big decision in the moment. One tap on an app, but multiplied across a week, it's often the single largest hidden category in a young adult's entire budget. Bigger than subscriptions, bigger than little treats, sometimes bigger than rent overages. The convenience is real. The cost of that convenience is almost always underestimated. Habit number 10. Doom spending, buying things specifically to cope with anxiety about the economy, the job market, or the future. This is different from a little treat. A little treat is usually planned or expected. Doom spending is reactive. It shows up after doom-scrolling bad economic news, after a stressful day, after feeling powerless about something completely outside your control, like housing prices or layoffs. The purchase becomes a stand-in for control you don't actually have. The backfire is that it never actually resolves the anxiety that caused it. The economic stress is still there the next morning. All that changed is your bank balance went down and your credit card statement went up. It's not that treating yourself during a hard week is wrong. It's that using spending as your only coping mechanism guarantees the stress will keep coming back. And so will the spending. Habit number 11. And this is a big one. Genuinely believing retirement is impossible, and using that belief as a reason not to invest at all. 1 in 5 Gen Zers believe they will never be able to retire. That pessimism is understandable given the cost of living right now. But it creates a dangerous self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're convinced saving for retirement is pointless, you stop contributing, which is the one thing that actually determines whether that belief comes true. This is the habit that costs the most in raw dollar terms over a lifetime, because it's not about a single purchase. It's about decades of compound growth that simply never happens. A 22-year-old who invests even a small amount consistently has a mathematical advantage. No amount of saving in your 30s or 40s can fully make up for. The habit of writing off retirement early isn't caution. It's the single most expensive habit on this entire list, and it's completely invisible because nothing bad happens today. It only shows up 40 years from now. Habit number 12. Leaning on side hustles and gig work as your core financial safety net, instead of a supplement to a stable income. Picking up a side hustle to manage rising costs is a smart short-term move. And a lot of Gen Z has done exactly that. The backfire happens when gig income becomes the primary strategy rather than a bridge. Because gig work rarely comes with retirement matching, health insurance, or predictable pay. It solves this month's cash flow problem, while quietly leaving you without the safety nets that actually protect long-term financial stability. Habit number 13. Banking entirely through digital-first apps without building the security habits that go with it. The vast majority of Gen Z accesses their bank account primarily through their phone, favoring digital banks and fintech apps over traditional credit unions. The convenience is real, but the backfire is a gap in fraud protection. Many digital-first users skip setting up account alerts, don't diversify where their emergency fund sits, and are less familiar with how disputes and fraud claims actually work at their specific bank compared to someone who grew up walking into a branch. Convenience without security habits is convenience that comes at a real risk. Habit number 14, and this one might surprise you. Rushing to stop taking financial help from parents specifically to prove independence. It sounds admirable, and often it is. Fewer Gen Zers are relying on family financial assistance than a couple years ago. But the backfire shows up when independence is prioritized over readiness. Turning down help with a security deposit, or insisting on paying full rent alone before your income can actually support it, isn't financial maturity. It's pride disguised as maturity, and it often leads straight into the high-interest debt or overdraft habits we already covered. And habit number 15, the one almost nobody names as a money habit at all, consuming endless financial content, videos just like this one, without ever actually doing anything with it. It feels productive. Watching a video about compound interest, saving strategies, or investing basics feels like progress. But watching isn't the same as opening the account, setting up the automatic transfer, or actually building the budget. The backfire is mistaking awareness for action. Feeling financially informed while your actual bank account hasn't changed at all. So there they are, 15 Gen Z money habits, and the honest truth behind each one. None of these habits make you bad with money. Most of them come from a generation trying to navigate a genuinely harder economy than the one before it. But the habits that quietly backfire are the ones that feel responsible without ever being checked against the math. If even one of these hit close to home, that's not a bad thing. That's the first step to actually fixing it. Let me know in the comments which one you're most guilty of, and if this helped, you know what to do.